The Australian Human Rights Commission revealed a report that state and territory leaders did not consider, nor did they protect the human rights of Australians during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm here to share my story as raw as I can with you to say that I agree with this report. To hear my story, we're going to have to go back to 2020, April. I was living in New York and preparing to leave with my partner, Andrew. I'd been there for 9.5 years. I loved my life in New York. I built a great career, a great circle of friends. I loved my apartment. I loved everything about the city. But I got a phone call from my mum saying it was time to come home. She'd been suffering from stage 4 bowel cancer, and I knew she was going to call me when she knew her time was coming up. So Andrew and I prepared to go back to Australia and face a really difficult challenge of taking care of my mum and eventually saying goodbye. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, Australia closed its borders, locked its borders to anyone that wasn't Australian, and that included partners like Andrew. So I said goodbye to Andrew and thought I'd see him in a couple of weeks. How wrong was I? It would be 15 months until I would see Andrew. During that time, it was the hardest year of my life. I was going back and forth to the hospital, trying to sort out my new life here, all the while trying to get Andrew here to support me and protect me, a role he's always had in my life. I joined Facebook groups, separated loved ones, and heard some horrific stories. I'll never forget, a man in Queensland was denied his right to go see his father's funeral in New South Wales. In June 2021, I lost my mum. In what was the hardest thing I've ever gone through and continue to go through. You'll never get used to living without your mum. 3 weeks after her funeral, Andrew's visa was finally approved, but it was too late. I needed him the past year. I needed his support, and Australia failed me. A lot of people watching this are probably thinking, but we saved lives with those lockdowns. We saved lives with all those harsh rules and regulations. But my question to you is, at what cost? 5 years later, and I'm still traumatized about what we went through. I've always been a super patriotic Australian, so proud of where I come from. But I've never felt so embarrassed to be an Australian after what I went through. So if we ever have to face a pandemic again, I hope we look at this report and make our adjustments. I think we need to protect human rights and people's rights to be with their family and people's rights to say goodbye, because there's nothing more un-Australian than separating loved ones.